It's first.
So we're live and we're there. So this is the KEW exchange, and I am taking it slow coming back. I am taking it one step at a time. So this is my amazing friend, Debs. I don't even like looking at Deborah is just weird to me, so I'm going to keep calling you Debs anyway. And she's just an amazing human being. I adore her completely, and I figured there's no one better to get back with and start with a conversation that who knows where it's going to go than Debs. So we're just going to roll with this. And Debs has a podcast. It's called Leading Dragons. I was on it a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. It's about leadership. It's about leadership with unapologetically. It's about living into your best self and inspiring others to be their best selves, and being a true leader, which is something that's so desperately needed in the world today. So, Debs, why don't you explain a little bit about it and why you started it?
Okay, before I dive in, Mike, I would like to say thank you. I'm extremely honoured to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you for trusting me in holding this space also whilst you're on the road to recovery. So we'll go easy, we'll be kind, as we always are to each other. And yeah. So Leading Dragons. Leading Dragons is a podcast series, and it's a platform that I launched in September last year with a view to creating this space for leading dragons, which are fearless leaders, to share their stories and share the insights and hidden teachings from their stories to empower others and enable other leaders to step into their power and to lead authentically.
So now that that's the professional, title and everything, let's go into the core of it. Like, why really? Like, what motivated you over the last few years that you said, I've got to start this podcast?
Wow, okay. I don't know how far back I need to reel back through, but
as far as you want. You've got an hour, so feel free to go, as many years as you think you can fit in.
Yeah. I'll work my way backwards. The trigger of me launching a YouTube channel for the first time ever, when I've never done any drama, never been on television, not a reporter, not an interviewer whatsoever, is because summer last year, a friend of mine said, you know what, Debs, people don't need perfection anymore. They want the truth. And I'm like, okay, let's just go. I'm just going to go and do it. And the drive behind that was on the back of my recovery from severe burnout. And the burnout piece was such a pivotal point in my life that made me realize that things have really got to change. And so my burnout came from working in a huge bank. I had a very exposed role. It was fascinating. It was also overstimulating in all senses of the word. So emotionally, intellectually, systematically, so when I eventually went to the doctors in November 2019, he said to me, well, he said, you didn't listen to me back in May of that same year, and you kept on going, and you as a high achiever and as a maximizer, you were ignoring the signals, and this is where you are today. I was like, right, okay, so you want to sign me off, so can I go back to work on the 1st of January? And he's like, I don't think, you're not listening to me, are you? You're not listening to me. And I'm like, well, yeah, off a 4-week sick, that's a pretty long time. I should be good to go for the year 2020. And he's like, no, you're going to have to let it run its course. And that was the beginning of me letting go and learning to let go. And so on the back of that, of the recovering piece of burnout, I realized just how much we are disconnected. We're disconnected from, first of all, from ourselves. And especially from being at the receiving end of the burnout, when I, as a leadership facilitator inside organizations, I'm doing just that. So helping, accompanying, enabling leaders to work their way to identify their toxic cultures and craft new ways, smarter ways of working better together. And yet, whilst I was doing that, in parallel to that, I was slowly burning out. So this is where, the title of today's show is, I love it, Mike, The Magic of Connection, is because it starts with ourselves. And so although I've been a yogi for 20 years, and although I authentically, I'm very passionate and genuinely curious about humans, how they self-organize, how they organize themselves in the workplace, and performance, collective intelligence, I was actually disconnected from my own self.
So let's take a pause. Now, when you say burnout, right? Like me, I just went through a physical burnout, right? Because my body had a physical thing that I ignored, right? So for me, it was really physical, which then led to just nothing functioning right. When you're talking about burnout, you're talking about burnout on all levels, like fully just empty, correct?
Yeah.
Can you describe what that feels like? Because I don't think I know what that feels like. That's why I'm really asking, because I want to learn. I don't care if anybody else wants to learn anything. I do.
Okay, so the run up to the official diagnosis of my burnout, I wasn't sleeping properly. I had broken sleep for many months, but I kept going, getting up, shower, dress, breakfast, off you go into the office, day in, day out. And then it got to a point where, so I was like becoming passively disengaged. And then I became actively disengaged. So that meant, I remember a very particular morning, so I badged in the office, took the lift, went to my floor, and we were hot desking. So, every day you come in, you've got your laptop, you plug it into whichever desk is available when you want it, right? I sat down, and as my laptop's switching on, I see a cup of coffee that's untouched that was on the desk. And I'm like, oh yeah, so somebody who's, and because COVID was already, there was already these messages around the pandemic, and we've got to start, disinfecting everything and making sure the desk is, clean before you leave it. I thought, wow, I can't believe somebody's left their coffee cup from yesterday, or and they'd left it there. And then I was like, gosh, it's untouched. So as I leant over to get it, it was hot. And I'm like, that's mine. And I can't remember going to the coffee machine and making myself coffee. And then the next few weeks, I got to a point where I couldn't read emails. So when I opened up an email, so there were sentences, but I was just looking at the words separately. And I had to make a conscious effort to try and join them together to understand the sentence. So those were the symptoms, signals, where I could no longer ignore. And then there was a lot. It was just, I just shut down.
What about like emotionally? How did it impact you emotionally?
I was right at the bottom of the energy scale. So I realized that I felt extremely scared because I was losing. I felt I was just like free falling into an abyss. In fact, my burnout poem talks about this.
Mm.
And it's a very scary place, and I chose not to take antidepressants because as a yogi, I thought I'd be able to pull through, and I also wanted to feel that pain. So the emotional pain became physical pain. And when you just feeling your hands and and doing such simple mundane tasks, they become like high mountains to climb. When I'd get up in the morning to get the kids ready for school, and then I'd go straight back to bed, and I'd sleep till midday. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have to, I've got to make lunch or whatever. I was just shut down. And then I think like the me being, I was like, I guess, yeah, I have to admit it, I was a control freak. Because being a high achiever and a maximizer and working in organizations and meeting deadlines and all the rest of it, I learned in that process that I had to really let go. Like, you know what, Debs? You don't have the answer. You actually don't have the answer. So you've got no clue how long it's going to take. And just living with that, that was like probably it was probably one of the biggest challenges that I had.
And how long did recovery take?
Well, I don't know, is there a beginning and an end? Or do we kind of transform and we become...
I don't know if it ever ends, right? Like it's a constant, continual evolution, right? Because that was a life-altering event for you, and that was an event that woke you up and made you start looking at things differently and seeing yourself differently and the world differently. I don't think I've ever gone through that, right? What I just have been going through physically is probably the closest I've ever been to that. But I still have my cognitive function. Now, I don't have my picture perfect memory like I always do. I don't remember every single detail like I normally do. My mind's a little bit slower than it used to be, for right now. But it didn't hit that level. And I don't know if it would have. I have no idea. I know that I was just burning myself to the ground.
I think for me, like the biggest learning, or the biggest, I don't know if you could call it transformation or whatever it is, but on the back of my recovery is that I am a human being. And I realized that until then, I was always a human being.
Yes.
And somebody said to me a couple of years ago, yeah, but Debs, we're human beings, we're not human beings. And even when I kind of, I brought that up in workshops and leadership workshops and team building workshops, and we talk about that, I was actually not authentically living it, that human piece in every cell of my body. And what I can say today is I am doing just that. So to-do lists, something of the past. And I'm so appreciative of the now moment, of living in the now. And that's taught me, I think it had to teach me, that's another thing that's taught me, which is live in the now. And just as Tolly, he talks about the power of now.
Yeah. It's living in the now is really tough. Like it's not my specialty. I spent a lot of years living in the past because of the trauma and everything I've been through. And then I spent, living in that victim idea, mentality, just being a victim to everything. And then I spent a lot of years living in the future, right? Like I wanted to have things so controlled and organized and planned that I couldn't live it today because I didn't even know what that meant. Now, through my rituals, routines, meditation, everything that I'm doing, I'm planning for the future, but I'm living in today. I'm not focused on controlling any aspect of my future to any extent. Now I have moments, right, that I try to control certain things. And, it's very quick to bounce back from it, right? Because what I see in my habits now, and I've learned, I coined something new, which is hyper acutely aware. Which is basically means I'm over analytical, but I made it a positive. So I'm trying to reframe things in my head. I'm being more aware of myself and more aware of my actions, reactions, habits, behaviors, my subconscious even. Like, where are things coming from? What is my intent behind it? How has what you went through helped you to really look at yourself in a different way?
So it's helped me because it actually made me realize that I didn't have a relationship really with myself. So my self-worth was entirely measured on extrinsic factors outside. So I spent all my life until then, basically, am I good enough? Am I doing the right thing? And also, and then if I knew that I was doing the right thing, I was asking myself, but is this the right thing for me? And so I was always measuring myself from outside factors. So consequently, I realized that I was never listening. I was never really connected to myself. And I was never really having that true authentic conversation with myself, that true relationship where what is it that I want? And so it's given me that. That was a very big pill, probably about that big to swallow. And it's the biggest gift. It's the biggest gift for me.
The relationship with self isn't easy.
No,
That's no, no. I mean, I never even had a clue what that meant until last year. I had no idea. Like, it just never made sense to me. What do you mean? I've got to know myself. I am myself. What do you mean? I got to know what I am. And it was always like this thing that just never clicked. Years and years of reading books and digesting information and spinning it to a way that made sense to me, which was, my subconscious saying, stay in ego because you're so good there. And then last year, getting, sucker punched in the face a few hundred times, pretty much forced me to look at myself. Because no matter what the circumstance was, the only thing that was the same was me. I never changed. So it's at some point you can't look anywhere else. You just can't. And I would recommend that people not to wait to that point to look at themselves, because it's a little bit harder when you're at that point.
and I think until you know that you're let's put it this way, I'm not here to preach, I'm just here to share my personal experience. So until I realized that actually I didn't have an authentic relationship with myself, that meant that fundamentally I was not really that authentic self and person to others. Because if I was doing things in accordance with other people's approval, then I wasn't being authentic to myself. And if I'm not being authentic to myself, how can I really be authentic to others? So it's actually operating from a very completely different space. And this is where this moves me into my favorite topic, which is the space of fear versus the space of courage. So fear-driven behaviors, fear-based thoughts, fear-based emotions, it's all low vibrational frequency. And until we really recognize that towards ourselves and go, yeah, actually, I'm doing this because ultimately I'm scared to, whatever it is, be judged and the consequences of that judgment. Until you recognize that, I guess we are just operating from that space of fear. And when we choose then, because then this is where we can really choose. This is again my experience. And through that awakening as well, 2020 for me was a huge, like, massive bosh awakening, just like, here you go, and you've been ignoring us for so long, So here you go, you're gonna get it slap bang in the face. It's actually all about choice. It's all about choice. And I'm God now. I'm not saying, oh, it's an easy choice to make, or it's an easy realization. No, it's not. It's actually extremely scary. It can be scary. It can be extremely lonely. You just like closing like a shell, and you just close in on yourself, and but I can talk about it today, because it's given me so much strength, and I feel today more and more, and every single day I'm so self-aware, every single day, and every interaction that I have with my children, with friends, with people online. I think it like just raises your self-awareness. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that I don't feel fear sometimes, but it's what we do with it.
So, okay, so let's pause there for a second because you said a million things, right?
I'm sorry.
So, no, you're fine, you're fine. So I always wondered, right? Like, if you're in a certain space and you're off being authentic to where you're at, does that mean that you're not being authentic if you're just not where? I guess if you're not authentic towards yourself, then you can't be authentic outwards, right? So, like, if you're judging yourself, then you're always going to judge others. If if you have expectations of yourself, you're going to have expectations of others. It's all about that internal work, I guess, and being able to turn that inward. How did you? What tools did you learn for self-awareness? Because that's a tough one sometimes. Because being willing to look in the mirror and own your side of things, like I can tell you, for me, it has not been easy. Like there's many things I did not want to admit. Like there's just things I didn't want to talk about. So, what are the tools that you learned?
Um, okay, so when I was in complete despair and I was at the bottom, I hit rock bottom, on the back of, well, when I was diagnosed with that burnout, I was completely lost, and I had no idea who to turn to or what to do. And I was frantically looking for somebody who might be able to hold my hand, somebody who would be able to guide me and support me somehow. And I came across, after many hours of searching on the internet, I came across this website by a Taoist teacher. And so I contacted him, and him and his wife, they're both Taoists, and they live in Hawaii. So I contacted him, and he helped me through the burnout and through the healing. And so much of what I've learned around the tools of Taoism are what I'm bringing to Leading Dragons and what I'm bringing into my work, which is so much about choice and it's learning about your power, your sovereignty. It's learning about abusive relationships that you might have. There's abusive relationships in most places, even if it's really low key, at work, within your community, wherever, and it's recognizing that. And also, what is power? Power is the ability to define. So if somebody is saying, say for example, I was to say, oh Mike, you're this, and I'm judging you or something. And if you listen to me and you're taking on board what I'm telling you, you're giving your power because I'm defining you and not giving my. I don't know if I've answered your question.
I don't know either. I'm trying to think. You shared again, but you always give so much knowledge in short, direct statements. So, okay, so let's do this also. I want to discuss what human being means to you instead of human doing. I want to discuss that difference because I think people need to understand that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's defining your existence. So you're defining yourself as an earthling on this earth plane. And when we are human doings, we are looking to define ourselves from the outside in by doing stuff, accomplishments, achievements, whatever it is, yeah, to-do lists and all that. And now I'd like to hear about, I like doing to-do lists. What do I want to do today? So when you're a human being, you're being. So, and when you're being, you are vibrating at a higher, you're raising your vibration basically. So you're released, you're letting go of a million things that you think you need to do. And by being, you're much more in flow. And you're allowing opportunities to come to you, and you're allowing just your organic energy guide you. And by doing that, it becomes effortless. And I have never been so creative since last year, because I just feed. I just feed, right? So I would like go, right, okay, I want to paint this vase of tulips that the neighbour left on the driveway this morning. So I just plonked them in a vase of water, and I just wanted to paint them. I've never done painting in my life, and I spent and it was 5 hours. I completed the painting on the same day, and it was just things that it's allowing self-expression, and I think that can only happen when you are being and not when you're doing. And this is a tool that I bring into my workshops with teams and with people, because by being, we can be creative. You can't force creativity. You can't force innovative thinking. You can't force, if you force solutions, they might not necessarily be the best solution, because it's the old thinking. So it's about disrupting those patterns and doing things completely differently. So in order to do things differently, we need to be in a different space, different headspace.
So is that a mindset? Would you say? I mean, is human being versus human doing, or is it really about the action? Because I feel like, okay, so for me, when I think of human doing, it's literally living that robotic life of just being, and not being, but actually being the robot, and just living in this matrix like environment where you just fit in everywhere. When I think of human being, like for me, I look at it different today because it's slowing down and being present in every moment, which I've never in my life have been able to do since recent times. Again, I spent so much time in the past and so much time in the future. I never left time for now. So now that I look at it, it's just this whole different spectrum of life. Like I see life, I feel alive, even though I feel like right now I don't look alive. I feel alive. That's good. That's good, because I promise you last week I didn't. Um, fetal position on the couch, just writhing in pain for hours, but that's okay. It happens. And I slept a lot, rested as much as possible with, being a single parent of 3. So.
But you see, that's very interesting, because the present piece is just that. It's exactly that. The human being is being present.
Yeah.
Is in a nutshell. It's exactly that. And when you're present, you're not the slave of the past, and you're not.
All right, Debs, run. I need coffee. Run with this, Debs. You got it. Run.
Okay.
Take over.
So yeah, when you're being a human being, just like you said, it's being present, completely present in the now moment, and which means that you are released, you're freed of the slavery of the past or of the future, and it's in the now moment that the magic happens. You can't program magic. And magic is going right out of your comfort zone and thinking in completely different ways, and we'll never be able to, with all what's happening with the pandemic, which has accelerated change and forced individuals and businesses into having to think differently. It's about being in the now moment and just accepting and not closing your eyes. And also another gift of the burnout is it's taught me to see things for what they really are. And when you start seeing things, it's like you see a 4-leaf clover, and then you see tons of 4-leaf clovers.
Right.
That you could never see before, and you could have spent hours and days and whatever years looking for a 4-leaf clover. And it's the same with seeing. And so when you're fully present, you just shed all the conditioning and all the illusions that are so hard, so deeply hardwired. You don't realize it's subconscious. And it's just pulling all of that out and going, I'm going to start like afresh. All my reference points out the window and just be present. And it's in the now moment that we have we have the answers. The answers come because they're there.
To me, the magic, right? Like I'm a conversational person, always have been. Love being on the phone. I need that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Texting pisses me off because there's no emotions. It's just blunt. It's just blah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a blunt individual, and I hate texting. Right? Like that tells you how bland texting is, or I'm just doing it wrong. Maybe I'm just doing it wrong, right? But like when I really think about it, like the human connection, when we allow ourselves from a soul-centered place, right, where we're connected to our own soul, which is the work that we've done and the work that we've put in and building that relationship with self and really finding that centered core of ourselves, identifying core values, living into them daily, all that fun stuff. When we look at that and we really break that down and we build this bond with ourselves, it makes the interaction so much better with others because we're having a better conversation with ourselves, right? Like I have a friend, Mark, who did I introduce you to Mark? Crazy Mark.
Mark, what's his surname?
Mark Wynn. Mark Wynn.
Yes,
I did. Okay. Yeah, Crazy Mark. I love him. He's like, I mean, I want to marry him. Like, I want him around forever. Like Mark has a way of explaining things that just click for me. Right? He makes the logical illogical, and it resonates with me, and it really does work. But he has a way of like, if you flip everything around a little bit, you flip your perspective, you flip the way that you frame it, it changes your whole world, and it changes everything around you. Because I always used to act, okay, really working on this one. I used to be very harsh and very blunt to people, and it was never coming from a negative. I never had, negative intent. I never had, I want to hurt you with this. I never really took the time to understand how I was coming across to people. And I didn't see anything wrong with it because that's how I was talking to myself. And the first time in my 41 years, almost 42, somebody actually said to me, he said it, he goes, that's obviously how you're talking to yourself. And until he said that to me, it never made sense why I was always like that until I really started thinking about my self-talk. And then once I started looking at my self-talk, boy, I'm an asshole. I really am an asshole to myself. And I really, I'm the first to, I never did it with malintent. I never wanted to be negative towards myself. But it was my way of speaking to self that led to me speaking to everyone else that way. And I think that connection is where it really comes together, right? Building that relationship with ourselves, which again is not overly easy to do. It takes work. You've got to want it.
Yeah, and I mean that's just raising, self-awareness, being more aware of what is the narrative that we're telling ourselves. Are we really defined by the stories that we tell ourselves, or are we not? So if we're not, where do we go from there? We wipe everything out and then we start from scratch with a new disk, a new hard drive, soft drive. And I think it's also, I can only say again, it can only be from my own personal experience, I think it's ego. So even like, starting Leading Dragons, my YouTube channel, I was like nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, how is it going to be? I'm going to be ridiculous. Never done this before. No one's going to want to listen to me. I've got nothing to say. And all this self-sabotage is actually ego. So everything that's connected to fear, it goes back to fear, right? Everything that's connected to fear, judgment, is ego. But when I realized that actually I don't give a damn, and actually my mission is bigger than me, I'm just going to go do it. I'm just going to do it. And if no one wants to listen to me, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to move with it and see where it takes me. I get 0 likes or 0 subscribers, it doesn't really matter. I'm actually not doing it for that. I'm doing it because I have something to say.
It's interesting, right? Because I'm the type of person that sits back and looks at these posts and says, okay, so if I impact one person or one person reads it and it changes their day, I'm happy, right?
Mm.
Because if I impact one person a day for the rest of my life, I'll impact millions of people. In theory, because there's a ripple effect and every ripple has another ripple. And next thing you know, you can eventually touch the whole world, right? So it's like I look at this and the vanity numbers and doing it for numbers or doing it for those reasons. Even my connections on LinkedIn, right? Like I have 26,000 something. I don't know how many I have, but like even probably 8 to 9,000 of those, I don't know why I'm even connected to. Like I look at it and I really don't know. Like because I guess at some point I was caught up with the numbers a little bit. I wanted the bigger network. I wanted to be the go-to person. I wanted to be that person that could reach anyone at any point in time. But I wasn't building the meaningful connections that I am today, right? And that's the difference because now that I have the relationship with self, right, which obviously I'm still working on because I was really an asshole to myself very recently. Right. I think that's a never-ending journey, right? But now that I have that connection to me, I don't care as much if I connect to 1,000,000 people. I don't care, if I have 6,000 or 60,000. It doesn't matter to me. If I have the 100 that I'm close with, that I communicate with on a regular basis, I'm so much happier with that than I am trying to maintain 30,000, connections, a couple 100,000 followers, and never accomplishing anything anyway.
Yeah, it's quality over quantity. If you have so you think you have 20,000 followers, well, what does that really mean? It's quantity and okay, isn't it? Well, yeah, exactly. And then what? Is that an end in itself? And because I managed to shed that piece of ego, I mean, obviously, I have ego. I think we probably all need a certain amount of ego. I try and keep it in check as much as I can. But it is, isn't it? It's like, well, as long as you're serving your purpose and you're serving your mission, you're doing the right thing and you're not harming anyone. And I said to my son, so my son who's 13, I said, hey, you know what, baby? Because you're trying to be I'm trying to be a bit of a cool mum. I try, because when he's 13, it's like, mum, can you just drop me off around the corner of the school because it's like. So I said, oh, you should go and tell your friends that your mum's a YouTuber. And he's like, he just rolls his eyeballs and he's like, maybe when you have 1,000 subscribers.
I think it's got to be really hard to be a kid today. What I went through, I guess, 30 years ago, right? I couldn't imagine doing it under the microscope that they do it now.
Mm.
Because of the amplification of social media, technology, everybody has a phone. Your kids get to an age and it's like, okay, when do they get their phone, right? Because you don't want them to feel like they're less than. You don't want them to feel like they have it too soon. And it's like all these crazy things. And it's things that, granted, my parents didn't have to worry about and probably never would have said yes to anyway. But it's just a different world, right? Like everybody is so judged and so judgmental and just you have to be something. You have to be something specific. And your daughter being on your show, I thought was brilliant, right? I didn't get a chance to watch it all, but I did watch part. And your daughter's brilliant. Like your daughter's amazing, right? She's just a great little woman. And she's just, it's hard, right? Because you worry about what's the world going to do to them, right? And you're in Switzerland. I'm sorry, Switzerland. It was the wrong SW. It's not your country anyway, so you don't care. You don't care. It's not your country. But it's like, so that's a little bit different too, right? It's a different environment. Europe is different than the US. It's a little different, less emotional maybe on the surface. Here's a lot more emotional on the surface, a lot more extreme, a lot more vanity. How is it like there? Like, how have you seen, like, have your kids have like started coming to you and saying, well, this kid has it, I need this too now?
They don't say it. They dress that up a bit, but yeah, they say they come with the same. It's the same message. And I'm having conversations with them because yeah, social media is everywhere, and they do have an iPad, they do have a phone, and the way that I like to parent is, well, you know what? Let's sit down together and put the restrictions in place together because I don't want to frustrate you, and I want us to do it. Let's do it together. That's my facilitation piece coming out, right? Because I don't want to sort of just impose it and go, no, you're going to have an hour a day and that's it, and you're not going to see any sites, and it's just going to be these games under 12. Try and say that to a 13-year-old who, like, you know, they're already they're so much more mature than we were at that same age.
Yeah.
To go back to my daughter, who's 10, and who was my first little dragon on my Leading Dragons. I want to empower her, and I want her to step into her power and to be able to talk about a time when she felt fearful and she's worked through it, because by doing that, she puts a stamp on it for herself, she seals that, and she's also, you know, inspiring if it's just one other kid. I had a few mums actually write to me privately and say, I've just shown this to my son and my daughter. I actually cried after I published it because I felt so
I remember.
admired. Yeah. Did I cry with you?
Yeah, we were on the phone. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was yeah, as you know, it was I found it so admirable that she did that. And she talks about basically the bullying that she went through at school, and the learnings that she learned, what she learned from it in that experience. Now she's helping other kids at school and defending them.
We don't give our children enough credit at all. At all. They are brilliant. They truly are. They might not learn the way that the system teaches them, but they are brilliant. And the one thing that I'm really an advocate for is we rip their curiosity away from them at a very young age in school, right? So what I do with my kids is, you're a lot better at that stuff than I am because they don't really have restrictions. That's how I get my quiet time, is by giving them their iPads after they're done with their homework, right? So now, granted, my son, you know, he's 8 years old and he's like me. He's going to find a way to manipulate the system. So he found a way online to look up the book and have it read to him on the iPad. So he doesn't have to read his book every night. Now the iPad reads it to him. And you know what? I'm perfectly fine with him doing it because he went out of his way to find it. You know, my kids ask me a question. I say, go ask Siri. And you know what? If that's a problem for some people, I don't care. Find your own answers. Mm-hmm. Use what's available, because I promise you, by the time you're 30, the tech is going to be so much further advanced that if your curiosity is not in place, you're going to get left behind.
Yeah.
Right? And I really push their curiosity to look at things. Now, I'm not big on the age restrictions because I want them to ask questions and I want them to ask me questions. So I leave that open for open conversations. Like, I don't want them finding out things from their peers, right? Like, you know, my 8-year-old said something sexual the other day, and I said to him, I said, what does that mean to you? Because he made a comment and he just heard it from some other kid. And I'm like, what does that mean to you? And we sat down and we talked about it. Mm-hmm. And I said, that's not really what it means. So you might want to take a step back and evaluate before you say that out loud again, because it's really not what it means.
Yeah. Huh? You're practicing conscious parenting, and it's really beautiful, and it's amazing what you're doing.
What am I doing? I just thought I was a horrible parent. Wait, there seems like a good term for this.
Conscious parenting.
Oh,
you're sort of having you're not reacting, you're responding. So you're thinking about how are you going to go, and you're not just going to react and go, "What? I can't believe you said whatever about that sexual content or whatever to your 8-year-old." You're going to go, actually, let's sit down, and because you're looking to educate your kids, and curiosity. I mean, for me, you just hit the nail on the head. For me, curiosity is the biggest form of intelligence, human intelligence, and we lose it. People want to dumb us out. They want us to shut up. They want us not to get curious anymore. And that's why they're feeding us with programs and mainstream media and all this junk on social media. Feed, junk food, yeah, junk food, and keep going. TikTok, keep going, because attention spans are getting shorter and shorter. Let's just keep feeding and feeding. So they don't even have any space to get curious. And
Yeah.
that's the usefulness that we so many, and even if we had that, when we were little. I mean, how many of us really genuinely have it today as adults? Particularly working in organisations.
It's interesting, right? Like we're such products of how we grew up and how the system is around us until we're not anymore. And then once we're not anymore, and we look back and it's like, wow, we really got sucked into that crap.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, and we don't realize it at the time, right? And I don't think that most leaders have that intent. Again, it's how they were raised to be leaders, right? Throughout companies, throughout people, through all their raising. The funny part is, I realized how much I evolved yesterday when I was in the car. My Sid stayed home sick because she wasn't feeling well, and I took the older two to school. I dropped them off. I'm on the car ride back. I'm on the phone with Michelle because she's my morning call every morning. And I'm on the phone with her, and Sid looks at me and goes, "Daddy, you're a butt shit." And I looked at her and I said, "If you can tell me what it is, you can say the word anytime you want." And she said, "I don't know, but you're a butt shit." And I just started laughing. And it was one of those things where, how can I be mad at a kid who doesn't even know what she's saying?
Mm.
When all she's done is heard it from her brother, or she even heard it from me because, I have a mouth like a sailor. And honestly, it's on me. That's on me for saying those words, right? It's not her fault. She's 3. Well, almost 4. She's like 4 going on 40. She's running the house. There's no doubt. Whatever she says goes. It's just easier that way. But like, I thought, like in the past, I probably would have yelled at her and I would have got mad at her. But all it is a reflection on me, right? And what I'm saying, or what her brother's saying, which then is what I'm saying, right? So no matter what, it comes back to me. But again, like, I looked at her and I said, "Ask Siri what it means." Like, go, ask Siri. And she tried to, but Siri didn't understand her. But it was funny. She was sitting in the car trying to ask Siri, and we didn't have Wi-Fi in the car, so it was a lost case. And then by the time we got back, she fell asleep for 6 hours. But she's feeling so much better today. Now I think I have her sinus cold, so that's awesome. Thank you, Sid.
That's really interesting because I was talking to somebody in Australia this morning, and there are 2 pieces to society, to our Western society, that I think need to are the roots of the disease: normalization and polarization. So what I mean by that, so normalization, we're like normalizing everything. We're normalizing sex objectification, with kids. We're normalizing maltreatment. We're normalizing poverty. Why in Africa are they still suffering from famine? We're normalizing people taking antidepressants because they're suffering from depression, burnout, and the likes inside organisations. So there's so much normalising. So when Sid said to you, "You're a butt shit," it's like, wow, okay, so that's where did she get that word from, and why is it even there? Why was it in her realm? And it's like normalising just these, just like insults, these words to her. Yeah. And then there's and then polarized discussions is like, well, you're either with us or against us. So I mean, I won't go into the PCR test and vaccines and all the rest. But it is polarized. It's funny, because in fact, going back to the conversation that I had this morning with this chap in Australia, was saying, well, it's amazing, isn't it? Because recruitment is a joke. So perhaps they've got a vague idea of the type of profile that they want to hire, right? And then you go as the candidate. You're a selected candidate. You go for the interview, first time, second time, third time, whatever. And you've got to shine. You've got to like stand out the crowd. You've got to be like, these knees. And then you get the call or the email. You go, Mike, we've got congratulations. We've got good news for you. You're the winning candidate. When can you start? But then when you get in there, any of those shining aspects that you showed in the interview, well, you better not show them in your job, in your work. You've actually got to sit down. I mean, maybe I'm not even characterizing that much. Sit down, keep your mouth shut, and do as you're told. And really, don't ask questions. You can ask a bit, but know when to just calm it down and close up. And that's kind of like it's. So when I talk about polarization, there's mass polarized practices and processes inside organizations. You do as you're told, and there's no in between. You're either with us or you're either making the decision or you're receiving the order. You're either taking the order or receiving the order. And that's it. And I just think that's those are the two pieces that really are being shaken up. And it's also the reason why I do talk about burnout openly. I think it's too much taboo. There's so much stigma around it. It's like, you know what? Until we have taboos, we're not going to grow.
Yeah.
We're not going to evolve. We're not going to break through, and we're not going to raise our vibrations. So what do you want to do about it? You just want to sit and look at your shoes? Or do you want to actually look up and put it on the table?
See, the corporate environment, right? I decided 2012-ish. Not that I never had a corporate job again, but I really decided that I was unemployable. Because I don't fall in line. I don't just take orders. I don't just shut up. If there's an inequality, if there's something not right, if there's something not going on that needs to, if there's a broken process, I'm going to speak up. I don't care. Because you know what? I can get another job. That's just me, right? Like, I know so many things. I've taught myself so many things. I can walk into any place in the world, get a job, day one, no issues, but I don't want to work for anyone else. I'm much happier being a contractor. Like, I come and go. When I see a shitstorm coming, I go. Like, I don't need to, yeah, it's nice to make money. It's nice to, have money coming, but I don't need to be a part of the shit show. Like, I just don't. Why do I want to put that pressure on myself and be responsible for somebody else's actions that I have no say in? I mean, or no voice. It's the corporate culture in this world right now is disgusting. And the way that people are treated, and I'm talking about every inequality. I'm not talking about just one. Any ism you can think of is disgusting. And, there's still countries around the world that if you're not doing free overtime and you're not going so overachieving, that you're not valued, right? So if you're somebody that's making, let's say, 150 a year, but you're working an extra 50% of your hours, versus somebody that's making 100 a year that's working their normal hours, they're going to push for you because you're working all the extra hours, but you're going to fall off a cliff. Those are the people that run out the windows, right? Like, those are the people that, sacrifice their lives for a role that will be replaced within days. Like, people don't look at it that way enough, and they believe that their identity is their job, right? And that goes back to that personal relationship again, right? What I know is I can get a contract anytime I want in any industry from any company if I want it or need it bad enough. So why in the world do I want to work for anybody else?
Mm-hmm.
Especially micromanagers, because they might just want to throw off the building. That's a whole different story. Mm-hmm. But like, I don't need the stress. I don't need the aggravation. And also, I don't need that much. I don't need as much money as that. I don't need to make all the money in the world to be happy. I'm happy within me. I'm fulfilled. I'm complete. I'm whole. Why do I want to go start tarnishing myself and ripping myself to shreds for somebody else?
And this is why actually that's in my introductory video, Leading Dragons, when I just started. It's really raw and it's like, I can barely listen to it. It's like, oh my God. But I talk about the greed, the power and the control that is still prevailing in nations around the world. Like, you know, we are in 2021. What, like, has anything budged? Has the needle budged by a millimeter? No. In the last 20 years? 30 years? No, it hasn't. Despite all the thought leaders out there, books. And this is why I'm just like, okay, you know what? If you want to sit and just look at your shoes or just wait for something to happen or for the people in power to make a change, you can wait till the cows come home because it ain't going to happen. And this is where it's about connecting with self and extracting ourselves from the matrix and from the illusion and go, okay, Mike, this is where you're really at. Do you really believe that the CEO or so-and-so is really going to make the change, honestly? And people just hang on to this hope, this false hope. They know it's false hope. They know deep down, but they're not even going to go there. They're like, no, yeah, of course it's fine. It's getting better. HR put this initiative in and that initiative, and it's like, really, like really. An initiative is just a tick box exercise, and then move on. And it's about moving, isn't it? It's always moving forward. Because if you keep going on, you said to me earlier, Debs, don't overthink.
Yeah.
So if we keep overthinking everything, we're never going to get anywhere, we're never going to do anything. And there's one motto that I love using, which is imperfect action is better than perfect inaction.
I think that's a good ending point. We've hit the ending time. I survived an hour live. Wow.
Well done.
I actually feel like I need a nap. Actually, that's. I really feel like I need a nap, and I just down coffee too. But world, thank you so much, Dorothy, Senior Posada, whoever else was watching and paid attention on the live, and then we'll watch the replay. I thank you all. I missed you all. I will be live again tomorrow, and then I'm off again until next week. I'm really taking a break and really taking it easy and trying to slow roll back into this, but I do miss it. And Debs, I appreciate you. Check out her podcast. It's awesome. She has amazing guests, and it's all about the truth and sharing the truth. So thank you, everyone, and have an amazing day.
Thank you, Mike.